Welcome back to Ripe Avocados. Today we're going to review Bring Her Back, directed by the Philippou brothers, Danny and Michael. They did Talk to Me, which Sean and I have both seen. We haven't reviewed it on the channel, but very underrated, very good horror movie if you like that genre. If you're new to the channel, the way this works is we're going to summarize Bring Her Back, and then we're going to subsequently score it and then analyze it with our four categories, which are entertainment, characters, cinematography, and writing. And if you haven't seen this movie, you don't want it to get spoiled, then just skip to the scores timestamp and the final score timestamp, because we will definitely ruin it for you, and we won't feel bad about it either because this is your warning. So we're going to kick it into gear and let's review Bring Her Back.
Daydream, I fell asleep amid the flowers for a couple of hours on a beautiful day.
So the movie Bring Her Back follows Andy. He's like a close to 18 years old.
He's 17 and 9 months.
Yeah. And then, wow, actually, yes, exactly. And his little sister Piper, who is visually impaired, she's blind. And one day they're at their house and they find out that their dad has died. Literally, like in the shower, they find his dead body there. Andy is clearly overcome with fear and anxiety and can't do anything, while Piper kind of is proactive in trying to save her dad with CPR. Flash forward, they're put into foster care and they get adopted by this lady Laura, who had recently lost her daughter due to a drowning, and Laura is a fucking psychopath. Laura is off her fucking rocker, and she is basically willing to sacrifice anyone and everyone to see her daughter one more time, hear her daughter one more time. So low-key respect, like I get it, a mother's love and a mother's bond is hard to break, but she does this by literally murdering her friend of 20 years, drowning Andy, doing literally anything and everything to get her daughter back.
Right.
And she doesn't.
No. She basically joins the Heaven's Gate cult to make her dreams come true, or like restore what she once had. And yeah, this movie was, I mean, I don't know if I mentioned it, but it's A24, so I think we both knew what was going to probably happen here. It was something definitely outside of the box, definitely really fucking weird, especially if they're getting into the horror genre. I mean, they probably do it better than anybody with Hereditary and whatnot, but let's get into the scores here, and then we can really talk about it. So first one we're going to do is entertainment, obviously, how good we thought it was. I gave this a 6.4. I went pretty down the middle here.
I went 7.3.
Okay. For characters, I went 7.4 here.
Characters, I went 8.1.
Okay, I think you're going to be higher than me on all of these. Cinematography, I went 6.1.
Wow. Cinematography, I went 8.8. I liked the cinematography in this movie a lot.
Okay, that's a big discrepancy, actually. And then writing, I went 7.0. Average.
Writing, I went 7.9.
Okay. So we'll dive into the entertainment first. I will say I liked the beginning of this movie a lot more than the end, and I feel like we've said this about some recent horror movies we've done, especially Longlegs. That stands out.
That's the first one I thought of.
Companion to some degree, but that's not really horror, I would say. There was another one I'm forgetting about, but Longlegs definitely stands out. I thought this whole thing was just, I mean, there's definitely some scenes that will make you shit your pants. The knife scene in particular stood out to me. It's more so a lot of gross, gory stuff versus the jump scares.
I was going to say, this reminded me a lot of Hereditary and Talk to Me. I mean, of course, A24 film, Talk to Me, directed by the same people. But it's one of those films that it doesn't make you jump out your seat, and there aren't a ton of jump scares like a movie like Smile and Smile 2. However, this kind of movie just makes you very uneasy, and you kind of
Yeah.
leave the theater a little bit more depressed than normal for some people. But like, yeah, it just you're watching it like you said, the knife scene, the kitchen table scene, the kitchen counter scene. You're watching this and you're just like, oh Jesus Christ, bro! Like, don't do that.
And that really factors into my adaptation of the entertainment, because at least when I'm watching a horror movie, I want one of two things. I want it either to be just the most ridiculous story that has me befuddled the whole time. I'm thinking of like Hereditary. That is not a feel-good movie at all, but the end is so shocking and there's such a wow factor to that. I mean, the whole movie kind of is. I mean, we could talk about Hereditary forever. And the other aspect would be just the like more jump scares and more of a wow factor. I guess they're kind of combined into the same thing. I just thought this movie was super like depressing and did not have any sort of limelight of hope in it whatsoever. And I get that it's a horror movie, and some horror movies, I mean, we just did Final Destination, every character dies, but there was just some really depressing things. This movie does not have any rewatchability for me, at least. I don't ever want to see this again. It doesn't mean it's bad. It definitely kept me hooked. I was intrigued a lot more, like I said in the beginning, but it really just lacked that big twist, I thought, at the end, which I thought was coming, and it didn't really come. Also, Andy's death.
What twist were you looking for? Oh yeah, Andy's death is so tragic.
Right.
Literally went out the same way his dad went out, just face down in a puddle.
Yeah,
Like,
I actually didn't even make that connection. That's a good comparison.
Like
there.
that's got to be his like biggest fear of all time, and like it's just before you mentioned what changes you might have made or what twists you wanted to see. I will say, so I completely agree with you, but I'm on the flip side of the argument. I enjoyed this movie. I'm not going to say it's as good as Talk to Me, because when I left the theater after seeing Talk to Me, I literally could feel everything that I felt during that movie in my stomach while walking into the parking lot to get to my car. It like stuck with me. This movie didn't stick with me as much, but I'm not into the whole like happy endings all the time or rooting for the main characters. Like I enjoy a little twist in that sense when watching movies. This movie, I like watched it and I wasn't happy at all with the outcome of the ending, but I appreciate it. I was like, I watched it and literally no one won in the end. The mom didn't bring her daughter back. Piper lost her brother, lost her whole family, her dad and her brother. And she realized like her dad was a piece of shit, like beat up Andy. And then Oliver, we haven't even mentioned Oliver yet. Dude, Oliver had it the worst. That kid got kidnapped, was eating a fucking knife, ate a little girl's face off, was possessed by a demon, and finally got out of it at the end. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. The kid couldn't catch a break.
Yeah, he had a rough go of it. The last thing I want to mention on the entertainment. So I said two things, and I kind of lost my train of thought. So I think when we talk about Talk to Me, there's that glimmer of hope where the main character of that movie, I don't remember her name, she's trying to reconnect with her mother. Kind of a similar plot line here, and you kind of see how she's able to potentially do that. And there's a glimmer of hope, like maybe she actually does get her mother back. And then in this movie, right, Laura is trying to bring her daughter back, but I have no reason to root for Laura at all. I just wanted Andy to bash her face in the whole time, honestly. And Andy, I was the guy rooting for the most, and he just dies so kind of pathetically and tragically. Not even, I shouldn't say pathetically, like he's trying to save the social worker. Just, it was so dejecting.
He's trying to save his younger sister, really.
Yeah, no, in that actual scene, he's trying to get her out of there. I just think Andy was a great character, and we'll touch on the characters here in a second. It's just, it was so depressing to me how I just couldn't really find anybody to root for in the end. And then Laura's whole like code switch just because Piper called her mom, I kind of thought that was a little shitty of a way to write that, in my opinion.
That definitely was shittier. I thought she might have I thought Laura hearing Piper scream mom might have just like stunned her because she thought for a second maybe her daughter was back. But yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I hear all your points right now. It's just I kind of enjoyed it. Like
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, because it's not something you see every single time when you watch a movie, right?
Right.
Like, we just watched Mission Impossible. We know Ethan Hunt is going to win in the end. We just know it. So whatever happens up to then, you're just like, Ethan Hunt's going to win. Ethan Hunt's going to punch this dude in the face, pull him out the airplane, and do barrel rolls in his airplane, and like flares are going to shoot off, fireworks going to go off. Whereas this movie, you're hoping that Andy's going to beat the shit out of Laura. You know what I'm saying? You wish he was the one in the car that rams her, but unfortunately it ends up being him and the Child Protective Services lady. Which also, that was so weird because I don't know what the deal is in Australia, but this man claimed that this lady had stolen a child. You would think like one police officer would go with them.
Dude,
I
do you know how hard it is to get? Oh, finish your thought.
Well, no, I understand the coworker. She's like, oh, I work with that lady for 20 years. Like, I'll just go see it. But it's like, this dude is visibly agitated and on edge and claiming that, like, he's literally pointing the kid out on the wall. He's like, that's the kid that fucking is missing. And she has kidnapped him. And everyone's just like, I don't know. I don't know.
It's so hard to get the ability to adopt kids in general if you have a clean criminal history. And this woman literally she probably has, well, she already kidnapped Ollie. She probably tried to do some other wild shit. It just seemed like they didn't even.
Her daughter.
And she lost. Yeah, that's one of the things they do. They check up on your background, and that would be a huge red flag of, not being able to be a parent or whatever.
Yeah.
But well, we could touch more on that in the writing. I think we could probably let's move on to the characters and talk a little bit more about how crazy Laura was, because I didn't hate the characters. I actually had this. Was this my highest rated thing? Yeah, it was. I liked how few characters they were. As you know, I just think when you have less amount of people, like there were way too many characters in Mission Impossible, for example. We talked about that last week. They really all had their own identity, which I liked, and it was established pretty early on. I will say it was just way too dumb to me how Laura was nuts from the very beginning, and I think that's where I wish there was more of a twist. I actually said to Fran, I wish they had added a spouse to Laura or somebody else in that house that was seen as sane. Obviously, Oliver looks fucking demented the second you see him.
When he's just standing around, he's like in the corner of a room, just like. You're like, Jesus Christ.
I forget the verbatim Andy uses to tell Piper what he looks like over Snapchat. I think he just calls him like a fucking weirdo. And he's not
messaging Piper on Snapchat.
Who is he messaging?
Messaging? I think just like a friend.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I thought it was
Piper
either
can't read that.
Well, I figured if she would like held it right up to her face, she could. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Whatever. He was talking shit about his appearance, rightfully so.
Yeah.
He looked demented because he had a demon in his stomach.
Laura was literally like, "Give me your phone."
Yeah. No, I will say Laura, Sally Hawkins is the actress's name. She did a great job playing this character. It's very reminiscent of Toni Collette's Hereditary. It's it's a Walmart version of that movie. It's not. This movie doesn't touch Hereditary in terms of any aspect, in my opinion. I just think it's not as good. But she does play this lunatic of a mother who is trying to just grasp something that's so far-fetched and out there. I don't understand why she couldn't have just adopted another daughter like she did with Piper and not try to implant her with all these other things. Like, she's clearly just lost her mind. And she does a great job portraying it.
I see, that's the thing. I don't think it's like... Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because she's watching a VHS tape of someone summoning a demon or like a lost soul into a body inside of a ring. Like, I get that. That's fucking insane. But it's like the extreme... It's the extreme of like a mother's love and like just that mama bear mentality, like wanting to protect her child, wanting to see her child again. Like it's definitely the end of the spectrum of that extremity. But like we kind of see it in Prisoners to a lesser extent. What Hugh Jackman is willing to do to find his daughter. You know what I'm saying? So
And that isn't that Marissa who plays the crazy lady in that movie? The antagonist.
the like old aunt or whatever she is to Paul Dano's character.
Yeah, it's a famous actress though. It's not Marissa Tomei.
No. But yeah, I thought the characters were fantastic. On top of Laura's character, I thought Andy, Piper, Oliver, I thought they all acted their parts extremely well. As you were saying, very distinct characters, like to each their own. And like I said, I felt like I connected with all of them, and I felt so sorry for Oliver in the end. I felt so sorry for Piper, the fact that she lost her family. I was rooting for Andy the whole time, and he ends up getting killed in the most tragic way. So I like felt for these characters. It's just the outcome of the movie wasn't in their favor.
Right.
I low key, I kind of felt really bad for Laura in the end. Like the fact that she was willing to go through all these lengths just to see her daughter one more time, and she can't even do that. Like, it's just such a tragic story. I'm like, God, this fucking breaks my heart. But at the same time, like, I enjoyed the movie.
The second she choke slammed Piper in her sleep, I was out on Laura.
When she's like looking at her, turns away, and then turns around, just bop.
That scene honestly was fucking creepy as hell. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
That reminded me of Hereditary. That was something Toni Collette's character would do in Hereditary, definitely.
That's what I loved about. Again, when I say I loved about Laura's character, I understand she's a complete fucking jack off and a psychopath. But like her gaslighting and
Sean
manipulation.
Likes Laura. thinks she's really smart and innovative.
Yeah. Someone bring up the How I Met Your Mother hot crazy scale. Because she defies that logic. She's like not hot, but very crazy. But no, Laura's gaslighting and manipulation tactics shown throughout the movie are absolutely hilarious. Like her trying to manipulate Andy the whole time. It like when she's like looking through his phone right in front of him, he's like, "Whoa, like give me that," and she immediately like cowers against the wall. She's like, "Oh my god, like why would you do that?" He's like, "Whoa, sorry."
It does add. That's a good point too, because the way they wrote Piper, I think it created this whole element to where she can't trust everything she sees, obviously, and she's just going off of what other people are telling her. Like, she doesn't realize that her dad's abusive until Andy tells her.
Right.
She really only trusts Andy, and then she's only met Laura for a decent amount of time, and she seems friendly on the surface because she literally can't see what this place looks like. First of all, she can't see what Oliver looks like and how he's clearly something's wrong with him, and how there's all these things going on, and it adds that element adds to the story because Andy, like he's confident in himself, but he knows he's not an adult, but he's trying to be protective. So he takes the back seat and sort of accepts that, I guess I'm peeing the bed after probably not doing that for 12, 13 years or whatever it is.
That was a crazy scene too, when we see Laura pee into the bucket and just pour it on him.
Right. Yeah, that's some diabolical shit.
Yeah.
To make somebody else wet their bed. That's some fucked up shit right there. But
again, she was just trying to tear Piper and Andy slowly apart. That way, Piper would end up staying.
But had Piper had normal vision, or it was completely able-bodied, I don't think that whole thing would have worked as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably not. But that's probably why she wanted to adopt Piper. She can easily manipulate her.
And that had to do a lot with the appearance, I guess, of how she looked compared to her daughter. But to me, that just was really, I don't know. I didn't really fully grasp that, because why don't you just adopt a fucking kid? If you're that crazy, just call the kid whatever you called your daughter, Ruth or whatever her name was. I don't remember her name. You could just say, like, you could dress her up the same. Yeah, you can still dress her up the same way and be fucking weird, but you don't have to like implant. I'm not. I don't recommend people to go do this, but I just think that that action would have made a little more sense. And obviously, A24 is trying to step outside the mold of whatever is normal.
Yeah.
Just do their thing. And going back to your Mission Impossible point, A24 is on such a heater in terms of their original content. I mean, you go into watch one of these movies and you do not know what is going to happen. It could be, it ranges like a Stephen King discography in my opinion, because you have some of these movies that aren't so dark when they do horror or not horror stuff. Like they just did Warfare, and now they step out of the mold, do this. I just saw that Jenna Ortega movie about the unicorn or whatever.
Oh, Death by a Unicorn.
Just really odd movie, but very interesting, and they always are just
They're out of the
best.
box. Yeah.
They're just the best. I will literally watch anything A24 makes, and they probably have a fraction of the budget production wise that Paramount and Warner Brothers and all these guys do. So let's do cinematography, because I think we've touched on the characters a good amount. I don't really think there's much more to add there. So why do you like it that much? I will say I like the circle aspect of it. Like they use those shapes to signify the cult or whatever. I just, to me, that whole ordeal was not really thoroughly explained, and we can talk more about that in the writing, I guess. But overall, I just thought it was a pretty basic horror cinematography, in my opinion.
For me, the cinematography was my highest score because, again, it reminded me just so much of Hereditary, but also Talk to Me again. Don't mean to sound like a broken record there, but same directors, so of course it reminds me of Talk to Me. But the way it was shot, and especially the gory scenes, everything feels so real and so like heavy, if that makes sense. Like when the coworker is hit by the car and Andy's hit by the car, like it's not the same feeling I get where at the end of Final Destination where the sister and brother are crushed by logs. I watched that and I'm like, that's the most like CGI'd bullshit I've ever seen. But when I watched Andy and that CPS worker get fucking rammed into the other car, it was like, Jesus Christ, like that. It just felt very real. And the shots of Oliver like biting into the kitchen counter and biting into the knife.
Yeah, that was disturbing, dude.
I know. And again, like it's not a feeling I like, but like I wanted to turn away, but I couldn't not watch that scene. And it like turned my stomach upside down, but at the same time I gotta respect it. And I think another thing with A24 is when it comes to movie stories and plot lines, they're always out of the box, but when it comes to how it's filmed and the cinematography behind it, I feel like A24 is one of those top movie publishing agencies, because all their movies have like this distinct look almost, and it's like so fucking cool to see. I don't know. I just respect it. They're always also working with directors that, you know, aren't your big Spielbergs and Christopher Nolans, etc. It's these new up and coming directors, and you're like, holy shit, like this is where the film industry can go.
It must be more of a vetting process with their scripts, because they never let really generic bullshit through the cracks. It's always very just we keep using the word original, but that's, I'd say, the best way to describe it. And
no, 100% agree.
Yeah, I don't know. There just wasn't a glaring thing in this movie that really stood out. I mentioned the symbolism of the circles. You mentioned the way Andy dies is very symbolic, I guess, with re-drowning. And then the whole aspect of rain, clearly it's this grand thing to Laura, but rain obviously signifies depression, doom, gloom, and all that, which obviously it was also really foreshadowing.
Did her daughter die when it was raining outside too? I can't remember if that was...
No, she just died swimming. That whole piece didn't really make sense. Why didn't she just refill the pool, you know? Like,
I don't know. Well, the mother probably doesn't want to go anywhere. Oh, you mean like refill the pool to drown Piper?
Right. Why didn't she just have water in the pool?
I don't know. The rain ended up working out. But no, think about this too. Like, Andy died the same way as his dad, and Piper found Andy the same way she found her dad. Like, it's literally the most tragic thing in the entire world.
Right. No, it was very depressing. Just very dark. A lot of these shots were, like I mentioned, either in a rainstorm. A lot were at night. Clear, like most horror movies, you're gonna have the crazy shit go on at night. But honestly, this one, it was just sort of all the time in this house. It reached that breaking point in the climax where Oliver just was out of the room. She did a terrible job of keeping him in that room too. I would have had him like locked to the bed or something. Like there was no way this dude wasn't gonna get out of there. It just seemed like it was not a foolproof plan or whatever. But yeah, I just didn't think it was that good cinematography wise as you did. But I hear your points. I don't think they're invalid by any means. It just, for whatever reason, like we've talked about too, how horror movies have to sort of be nerfed. I just thought it obviously had those elements. I was definitely freaked out at points, but it just didn't. I didn't think it was amazing. But let's do the writing, because I have some stuff I want to talk about. So I just wanted them to explain the cult a little bit more. We see one of the grossest opening scenes of all time is just this fat ass dude in the cult, like approaching this woman from behind with the circle, and we're sort of supposed to pick up the pieces and infer what really goes on here. They show that it basically, this demon that is inside of Oliver can take on the form of other living beings if they kill them by eating them. Or I didn't really understand it, because she also said she had to drown Piper, and then in the video we saw
kill her the same way that the person died.
Right, but in the video I saw from the VHS tape, whatever subject that was just like eating a person, and then
because I think that person ended up dying the way, or it was, there's a person that's dead, then you need a host, the demon's in it or whatever, the demon then eats the dead body, and then you have a new soul, or you have a new person that has to die the way that person died, and then that demon like regurgitates all this like fluid and blood and whatever he ate into that person, and then that person is back to normal, but
just gonna be normal. Yeah, just a normal person. I'm
yeah,
sure.
I don't know what the they need like a fucking return policy on that though, because like what if they're like a month in and like her daughter starts like
eating the
crawling
table?
up walls or some shit.
Yeah, no, it was, I don't know, I just thought there was a lot of plot armor around that whole scenario. It just seemed like it would have made more sense had she been hoarding kids and trying to turn them into Piper just manually, dressing her a certain way, like I was mentioning before. But it was creepy. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. I just would have liked more explanation of the cult. I think they could have done a good flashback scene versus just the VHS tapes.
I hear you on that, but to be honest, I didn't mind it. I liked the fact that we were pretty much like watching the VHS tapes along with the mother. Again, it kind of goes back to just how crazy and psychotic Laura is and the extremes she'll go to bring her daughter back. Like, she literally has this sketchy-ass VHS tape that she's watching at night. I thought, to credit the writing, I thought it was dope that we saw the VHS tape in that film broken out into the events of the movie. Like doing the thing to the back of Oliver's head, and then him like becoming more and more of a demon, and then her showing the fucking body of her daughter that she has in a freezer, and the fact that he has to eat that, and it shows like the different steps in the VHS tape, and you watch that unfold in Laura's house. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool. I understand like wanting to know more about the lore of the cult, but at the same time, like, Laura knows nothing about it. She's just sees this as an opportunity to see her daughter again, and because she's a fucking nut job, she thinks it's gonna work, and she'll do whatever she can to get it there.
So you asked me at the beginning what I would have done to improve it and make a twist. I think if they just had one more character that was living at this house, just call it Laura's spouse or partner, make it a guy. I mean, it doesn't have to be a guy, but for what I'm thinking of, I think this would have worked. You make a really like stable dude who seems kind of like the dad in Hereditary, who seems like he's very grounded, normal. And Laura, obviously, the second we meet her, I just predicted that she was fucking crazy, and then she was crazy. So I was like, all right. I mean, I get it. I understand what's happening here, but I just think this movie could have used an element where maybe we're trusting the dad more, and the dad's like gonna find out Laura's up to something, and then actually the dad is the nut job, and Laura is really trying to just bring her daughter back in a different way that doesn't require her to have Piper be eaten or whatever. It was just way too straightforward for me. There was no real element of parody, and
you just want to rewatch Hereditary for the first time again. That's what you want.
Obviously, it's
nothing is going to compare.
But there's something to it where, like I said, when I'm watching a horror movie, I get that there's a scare factor and there's a wow factor, and then there's also a mind-bending aspect to it where I understood where this was all kind of going. No, I didn't see Andy dying with like 30 minutes left or 20 minutes left of the movie. That was really tragic. I sort of expected him to, through plot armor, survive the drowning. Like maybe he was faking it or something. And clearly he just dies like horribly, and Piper finds him, and it's really sad. I don't know. I just from the first minute, 30 seconds I saw Laura, I was like, oh, yep, she's fucking nuts. Like that's where this is going here. And then she just emulated Toni Collette's character in a worse version of that movie. And that's sort of where I got most of this from. That's why I went 7-0. Did this plot have glaring plot holes? No, I wouldn't say so. You could argue some of the things that Laura was showing Andy early on were fucking weird, like when she's telling him to like make out with his dad at the funeral.
Yeah,
like,
that was fucking crazy.
That alone, to me, I'd be like, nope, see you later. Like, go see that worker, tell her that she's trying to get me to make out with my dead dad, and she's just doing weird shit. Like, I get it. I think it made more sense that he was younger, so he's drinking and getting fucked up, so he's not remembering what's going on when she's fucking with him at night and manipulating him, because clearly she has that mental advantage over him. She's older and knows what he's probably trying to do. But also just the fact that Andy was way bigger than her the whole time was... I just really think it would have made more sense had he revolted earlier. And I think him falling in the shower was kind of a really, really plot armor piece of the writing there. Like, I understand he was hallucinating and seeing his dead dad in the shower, but that whole part where he's just not at the house gave her time to really just get her point, or not get her point across, but like finish her cult activities while he's just concussed or whatever.
She could resume cult activities once he had left the premises.
It didn't also make sense too why... sorry, I'll just say this and I'll let you respond to that. But if I were Laura, I would have just kept him tied up in the house when he was concussed. Like, I don't know why she bothered bringing him to the hospital and stuff. Clearly, she's breaking so many laws here. And all she's trying to do at any cost is get her daughter back. So at some point she knows Andy's going to get out and come back and be a damper to her plans. So I just think some of her actions didn't make a whole lot of sense. But all in all, there weren't like glaring plot holes, like I said.
Yeah. Well, I just think, I think she was hoping that she could wait out Andy turning 18 and having to move out. But she thought she could split them apart enough to where Piper would stay with her, Andy would move on, and then she could finish the cult activities once he left. When she realized that Piper was going to stay with Andy, that's when she's like, okay, I have to get Andy out of our lives ASAP, which is why she went to the extent of just like getting him out the house. I will say though, when it comes to twists and stuff, when I was watching the film, when it got to the part where she was drowning Andy, I thought for half a second that Andy was going to, or the daughter was going to go into Andy's body, because I was like, oh shit, he's dying the way she died, like he's drowning. And so I thought that like the daughter was going to be in his body, and then when Piper comes back, it would be crazy because the daughter would now be inside Andy's body, and it would be this whole fiasco. But yeah, I don't know. Andy, I guess, just got the short end of the stick in this movie.
They also made her daughter look so much like Piper. I thought that there was a chance that they were the same person. And they could have just added some really weird cult supernatural twist, like maybe Piper's a host as well, and that's why she specifically brought her there. It seemed a lot like the Payman shit from Hereditary, and we keep comparing this movie, but it's very similar. I thought that Piper was like this chosen one, but I think you nailed it on the head with just her vision, and her lack of awareness is probably one of those key factors of why Laura just selected her. But she looked, in those flashbacks, they wouldn't show her exact face. They just showed a lot of shots, to the cinematography, I guess, but to just make her look so resembling her daughter. Yeah. That was said so terribly, but...
We did graduate college, by the way.
Right.
I promise.
It's been a while. Was not an English major or film studies major.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely I agree with those takes. There was something I was gonna say and now I can't remember. God, it's just the worst when that happens.
No, I mean, overall this movie was solid. It's just, again, I would never want to rewatch it because of how gloomy and depressing it is, and there's no glimmer of hope. This movie just made me feel horrible when I was watching it. I had to just go home and put on like Family Guy. Just to get my mind off.
I had texted you before you went to go see it. I was like, it's like taking just like the most heavy depressant drug of all time. Yeah. And just coming out of it. But
Cymbalta.
I will say, if Andy had lived, I would have been cheering a lot more inside. Like, I'm glad Piper lived, but I will say it is kind of ironically hilarious that Laura probably picked Piper because she was visually impaired and just thought like she could easily manipulate her and walk all over her and get her, or eventually kill her and drown her. But Piper was literally putting up a fight at every corner. Like, Piper, I thought, just going back to the characters, I thought they were all great.
Yeah, they were very unique. That element kind of reminded me of Heretic a little bit, where Andy is clearly from the get-go, he is the strong one, the kind of the parent figure, where Sophie Thatcher is that in that movie to Sister Barnes and whatnot, and she ends up sort of training her in captivity to escape, and it's almost a carbon copy of that. Also, another A24 movie, and
that's actually a really great comp. I like that.
And I do appreciate how original the characters were. That's why I went the highest with that score, but I think I'm just sort of going in circles here because I really just didn't like how straightforward the plot was. It was just way too basic for me in terms of how everything lined up in like a linear fashion, where I really think it would have helped if they added another character just to seem more stable on the front. But maybe they toyed with that idea. I'm not going to boycott A24 films. Just because it's not my favorite A24 film, just the originality and the authenticity of these bodies of work is just unmatched. I will still continue to go watch them. It just wasn't my favorite.
That's completely... I mean, definitely wasn't my favorite. Probably not even top 5. But I definitely enjoyed this movie. I'd recommend it to people, like, especially if you like Hereditary, if you like Talk to Me. You'll probably enjoy this movie. I've seen so many people being like, holy shit, like I had to walk out while watching this movie. It's really not that bad. If you've watched any other horror movie recently, like, you will be fine. It's not that crazy. There are scenes in it where you're gonna want to look away, but at the same time you can't, and it's just like kind of gross. But
it's really fucking gross.
Yeah, it is actually really
the
gross.
first scene is fucking gross. I was like, whoa, I think I said that out loud in the theater.
Yeah. Seeing
Holy
Andy
fuck.
and Piper's dad's hog just laying out in the shower too was crazy.
Not even that. The intro credits, you just have a girl sitting on the ground and some fat ass comes up behind her with his cock out. I was like, whoa, we're getting right into it here. And on that note,
that's the movie.
That's the movie for you right there. If you like that shit, you're gonna love Bring Her Back. No, but we gave this, so that's our final score here. We can wrap this up. We gave this a 7.4 out of 10 on our scale. Sean definitely brought this up more so than I did. Not super high entertainment score in retrospect to the other movies we've reviewed this year. Again, you could go see those on our website, which will be linked in our YouTube bio or in our podcast bio if you're listening on there. And yeah, it's a decent movie. Sean liked it more than I did, clearly. But if this is your thing, you like horror movies, then go check it out, I would say. Yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of Ripe Avocados. We'll be back next Tuesday, probably with not as depressing of a movie. Stay tuned for that.
We're going to watch Schindler's List.
Yeah. No, we'll be back next Tuesday. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching all the videos. We appreciate it. We love you. And peace out.
Deuces.